From the Philadelphia 76ers, number 6, Julius Erving, the doctor.
Way rock the baby to sleep and slam dunk.
Julius roaring to the basket, came up and walked space.
And now the doctor goes to work.
And that sends everyone reeling.
Unbelievable! Julius Erving put it hanging underneath.
The one and only Dr. J, Julius Erving. When you come into the league, Doc's in your locker room. Did you approach him and say, hey, I'm Charles Barkley? Did he see you and say, welcome? How did that all work?
I've told this story 100 times and I never get...
I must not have been listening.
I told the brothers. Just the brothers. Ernie, the night before training camp, I was up all night. I was nervous, because it was my first training camp, obviously. But the number one thing I thought about the whole night was, how am I going to approach Dr. J? Do I call him Dr. J, Julius, Mr. Erving? I had cold sweats thinking about that. And so I'm sitting in the locker room. Because first of all, not only that, Moses, Bobby Jones, Andrew Toney, Maurice Cheeks, like the Sixers, this was their heyday. So I was up like, God, I want to see all these guys I've been watching on TV. I don't know what to do. And Doc was clearly at the forefront. And I'm sitting there, and finally I'm in the locker room, and I said, well, I don't know what to do. And Doc comes over and says, hey, young fella, I'm Doc. And I said, I'm Charles Barkley. Ernie, I can't explain how nervous I was. Because like I said, that's when the Sixers was in their heyday. And seeing Doc and Moses Maurice and Bobby and all those guys, but Doc was the guy. That's one thing I always, like, we'll all have this in common. When we're growing up as little kids, there's very few players, the kids, say, I'm Dr. J, I'm John Havlicek, I'm Magic Johnson, I'm Larry Bird. We all got somebody, who we are. And man, Doc was the guy for most people, especially somewhere like me where we don't have NBA basketball in Alabama. But he made it so, that's the only thing I was nervous about.
How did he help you as a rookie in the NBA?
Well, Ernie, one of the problems in the NBA today, I think, I want to give, Moses is my mentor, Doc is my mentor, Maurice and Clement Johnson and all those guys. One of the big problems in the NBA today is, I don't think they have enough older guys on these teams. Listen, as great a player as Dwayne Wade is, LeBron James, they're like 27. Nobody knows a lot at 27. I think that's one thing that's really hurt the NBA. I think every NBA team should have an older guy. How did Doc help me? Doc took me shopping. He said, son, you're a grown-ass man. A grown man can't wear warm-up suits through the airports all the time. And I know that's like guys don't understand. Like, most guys when we come from college, we all got warm-up. We wear warm-ups everywhere. Like, dude, you're a professional now. He took me shopping. They bought me suits. Stuff like simple stuff like that. He said, you're a grown man now. You ain't in college. When you're in college, the whole team wear warm-ups. We can't have 9 guys wearing suits, and then you and Leon Wood getting on here in sweats.
You know what, Ernie, you said about who would you start your franchise with Larry Bird, Magic, and Michael. Well, Dr. J is who you would start your league with. And he's the guy who can be an ambassador for the league, and he could be a spokesman, and his style of play was infectious. So he create all of those things that those three had. Dr. J was the first league ambassador.
And in terms of being
ABA to NBA.
Yeah, and really being a pioneer in style of play and the whole, just call it swagger, call it style, call it flash, whatever. He had it.
And the fro. And I think that,
yeah,
the fro really set him apart, especially in his ABA days, coming in, merging into the NBA. But look, I grew up a Laker fan. And in '83, obviously, when Philly played the Lakers, how many of us here, seriously, after that move, when he went baseline and he held it, and how many of us went outside and tried to do that? We didn't have the big hands, but we all tried to be like Dr. J. We all tried to sail. We all tried to jump from the free throw line. I think he originally won the first slam dunk competition.
Reggie, you mentioned the fro. How about the shoes?
Yeah.
Isn't he the first guy who had his own shoe? The doc, remember the Converse Dr. J?
You're right, Steve.
I don't think anybody else up
Chuck
to that
Taylor.
point had their own Chuck Taylor. All right.
Doc was the first brand.
Yeah.
I think when also to echo Charles, you know, because Doc lives here in Atlanta and I'm still with him, you know, being around him, you're still nervous around Doc. You know, I still go up to him and I say, Doc, how you doing? And he said, I'm fine, Steve. He still has that fatherly figure over you. And like you said, Kenny, he's an ambassador of the league. I mean, Dr. J is something my dad talks about, my granddad talks about, I still talk about. I mean, I think he'll go one player like Michael, and those players will go through generations after generations.
How did he impact your development as a basketball player?
Well, I think it was just what you said, his style. I think the individuality of him on his teams is what made him, because you always knew Dr. J played on great teams and everything, but I knew Dr. J, who he was, whether it was with the Pisces or the Fish to say Pittsburgh, and he had the same, you know, afro on, or it was just, you know, he was always professional, it seemed like. It seemed like, you know, it was always his demeanor, but you knew that what he had inside of him, you wanted it, and maybe you had a little bit of your own in there, and if you ever got the chance to play, you were going to do your dunks your way, you were going to do your things your way. I mean, no one glided or even tried to have body movements like him, and so he taught me, you know, you can be your own individual.
Doc was just so smooth. You know, he was smooth above the rim and below the rim. You know, he was just so cool doing it. I can remember one time at LSU, I missed class, and he was down there doing something for Converse, and Coach Brown brought him over. And when I woke up, it was a hand on my chest, and I thought it was a guy that if you miss class, you got to run laps. So I'm thinking, oh, man, I got to run these laps. And then when I looked up, it was Doc. He was like, how come you didn't go to class, big fella? And he was just so smooth. And, you know, we became friends, and when I decided to leave early, after calling my parents, Doc was one of the first people who I called. He was just so smooth, he was just so nice, and he was very hospitable.
That's a cool point, too, because I wonder, there are certain guys you'll never forget when you met Dr. J, right?
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
Sure. I mean, it's just the presence. I mean, you just feel like he has the answer, whatever you want to ask. I mean, Dr. J, you know, we talk now, you know, about our kids. And, you know, everything is, he takes a little pause, and whatever he says, I mean, I'm listening like I'm a little kid again. That's what Dr.
What's that, Yoda, the person with the beard? Who's the person, not Yoda, but the person with the beard? And they come in and then you're going to see this great, you're going to see this great person to get all of the insight from. He's like that person in those
From the Matrix.
In those,
the Oracle.
He's the Oracle. He's the Oracle.
He still is that guy. Like, even last year, we were doing the playoffs, and I remember you said this is the best part about our job. We had one of the best conversations before the game. We were talking about just who our favorite players were and all this, and Dr. J walked in, and I've always had the biggest hands I've known. I've never met anybody with hands bigger than mine. And it was just an honor to go up to him and say, you know, let me see your hands.
No, give him the better story. I have an event All-Star Weekend.
Oh, you gonna tell him? Tell him. I'm a Dr. J fan. Go ahead.
Dr. J is at the event, and Chris Webber's there. So all of a sudden, you know, the night is ending, and Chris is walking around with a cup. So I'm like, Chris, why are you taking the cup? This was Dr. J's cup. He stole the cup for the event and had him sign it. And this is 2 years ago, so that's the impact.
Still hasn't poured it out.
I actually drink out of everything. I haven't washed it. It's just got his name on it.
Hey, you know, Reggie says it's part of it was the fro, and your hairdo on that photo over there.
Look, I tried
a little bit of
I tried to do
here.
the Dr. J
that was
curl right there. I had a little curl.
EST, the acronym.
It's a fellow.
Wow.
I tried to have the doc there. That was the best I could do.
There's Kenny and the Czar.
I look like Robert Reed.
Robert Ray Parker Jr., Kenny.
Oh, no.
You're watching Open
Never had
Court
that one. Never had that one.
on NBC.